This conference will now be recorded.
I call to order the Haslett City Council at 7 p.m., January 16th, 2023. All members of the governing body are present in the chambers. Item 2, invocation of pledge of allegiance. If you would bow your head with me. Thank you, gracious Father in heaven, for your many blessings. Thank you for all the opportunities that we have. With your wisdom and your guidance, we pray that you guide us and always be with us in all our decision making. In Jesus' name, amen. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3 is citizen participation and comments. Is there anyone that would like to make comment on anything on this agenda or otherwise? Is there anyone online? There is no one in the chambers desiring to make comment, and there's no one online. So let's move to item 4, items of community interest. Saturday, May 6, 2023 is a general election. The City of Haslett general election will be held May 6, 2023 from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the purpose of electing mayor, council member place 2, and council member place 4. I would like to make note on the published agenda, it was incorrect calling for place 3. It is place 4, place 2 and 4, as well as mayor. Applications for a place on the ballot will be accepted beginning 8 a.m. Wednesday, January 18th, 2023 until 5 p.m. Friday, February 17th, 2023. 4B, Haslett is hiring. I need everybody's help in earshot of this. If you know anybody that's interested in outside work, please send them our way. We have parks and grounds maintenance workers, water maintenance worker 1, water maintenance worker 2. Also, a staff accountant. We need a staff accountant. So again, I would anybody here, and if there's anyone online, please spread the word.
Mayor Holthe,
Yes.
the IT and the executive assistant to mayor are not on the list. Have those been filled, or are they?
We are we're tweaking those requirements. They have not been filled, to answer your question. So we could add those to that, but these job positions have been advertised. They're out there. They're ready to go. 4C, quarterly brush drop-off. The next quarterly brush drop-off will be held on Saturday, February the 11th, behind the fire station, from 8 a.m. to 12 noon. A Haslett water bill and identification with matching address must be shown to gain access to the drop-off area. Item 5, administrative reports. Council, does anyone have any questions with regard to our administrative reports? All right, I do. With regard, I will be sending out tomorrow some information regarding the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. We've had some uh, uh, changes. They are improvement, and they will be for your eyes only.
Mayor Halsey,
Yes.
now that you bring that up, is there, do they check in with the city when they come out to patrol?
Yeah. There is a new procedure have been put in place as of January 1st, and we'll actually be getting a report, monthly report with our invoice as to who was on duty. And that came at the request of county auditor. So there are some positive changes. I will describe them more in an email tomorrow to the council tomorrow.
Mayor Halsey,
Yes.
does this also include any status on our budgetary? Are you going to include any of that for tomorrow, going from 2 to 4? Or is that part of what you're saying?
Our budgetary, I don't understand.
We added the 2 additional sheriff's
Oh,
officers.
those, the two deputies, very specific for traffic control, have now been hired by Tarrant County. They do have they've had good fortune recruiting, and there are some people in the pipeline. I'm going to say I'm hopeful in a couple of months that we would have those folks. But again, I sent that contract back to, we were being invoiced for like we had everything and everybody, and I'm going, time out. Well, it gave them pause, and they went through their auditors, and they go, yeah, we can't do that. So that's all being passed around, and it has been for several months. They're paying a lot of attention to it. But nonetheless, there was some changes that were that we started discussing 5-6 months ago that were implemented 1st of January. And I'll describe to that in an email to you.
Just one more question. The reason I asked about the roll call, for example, if we have 4 on duty and only 2 or 3 are showing up on average, maybe there should be a clause in our contract to reflect that on how much they're getting paid for this. Because if they're not going to maintain their end of the deal, maybe.
That's one of the changes that have been did. We have been given specific assignments. There are 5 deputies, very specific, and the 6 will be filled within the month. And so these people are very specific to have where they go. So that's a big change over the last year, 2 years. But you'll get that description tomorrow, okay? But yes, that's part of, I mean, it's some positive changes. All right, then, let's go to item 6. Updates on active items, projects, and event recaps. Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. 6A, our community park project for the tennis courts. On January 10th, we had our pre-con with the contractors and got all those ideas worked out. They've got an estimated start date right now, January 23rd. I mean, they're ready to get going. We're going to have a full-time crew out here specific to just us. So we're going to get a lot of work. From what he tells us, they're going to get a lot of work done really fast. So we're excited to see them get started. The mayor just signed the contracts today. They will go to Mike's office tomorrow so that they can get them to the contractor and final updated plans signed and ready to go. So all that stuff's being worked on and finished out before they get here on the 23rd. On 6B, Stephen's got a couple of pictures. Our miniature, our little small excavator finally came in, and they are already putting that thing out there in the field and going to work. They, they love that little thing. That thing has been, it's a joy because they can load it up on a trailer, take it wherever they want to go, and they don't have to worry about people running them over like they had to on the backhoe driving up and down the road. So they're really liking that. They can get around and do a lot of things and get in tight spaces that they weren't able to get into before. So they're excited about that.
You know, I'll say a rumor that I heard is that our public works employees, if they know they get to use a piece of this new equipment, they'll volunteer to work overtime.
I have one that just about would if it's running that machine. He loves that thing so much. He is really enjoying that thing. And on the 6C, the Hassett Parkway project, we got a few pictures of that. Some new stuff is happening over there on that one. Our bridge over Buffalo Creek, as you can see, is getting it. It's already got the outer wall. Now they're putting the inner wall for the block from the sidewalk crossings. They're working on those currently. And this is up to the north end, up behind the old Hassett Elementary School. This is our crossing right there, that the drain that goes over through Lewis Lane. And the second one, and hard to see it, but if you're looking at that third picture, that is actually on the old schoolyard. If you look at the very far right in that picture right there, that is the existing school building right there. So that shows you how close they are. So they're getting dirt work on that section going. The phase, which is part of phase 1, phase 2, they're still dealing with relocation of utilities. So those are still ongoing. Seems like there's always a new problem with those, but it seems like they keep getting them solved. So everything's moving along the way it's supposed to. But yeah, this will be the next big thing, is seeing that grade there coming down lower and lower towards Schoolhouse Road. That's going to be something really different to see. Then we've got our L project, which is 6D, and that is getting much closer and closer. This here is looking down it from Harmon Road today. As you see, the lights have already gone up on that section all the way up to Harmon. They're boring under today, going to the other side, heading on up toward I-35. But you also see over on the right-hand side, they're starting the sidewalk. So this part's getting closer and closer to being just about done. And the biggest thing left in this project right now, besides the sidewalk, will be the actual signal. That's the two big items left on that one. And they're already at work on those. So those will be coming soon. The other picture is intermodal, where they also have all the lighting done. The only thing left on that one will be a project for us at some point. The old light coming down from the original roadway in, and the new lights all start right at the same place. So we got to take that old one pole, pull it down and take it out of that location so that things will look a little bit nicer. You'll have them same kind of pole from one side of the road going south, from transport going north. There'll be the big older tall pole, but they'll be broke right there at that intersection.
I have a
Sure,
question.
go ahead.
Will you refurbish that pole and move it somewhere else? Or
Yes,
is it?
that pole already has a new home. Before it even comes down, we've already got a place to take it. So it's going to come down, be cleaned up, get all any rust and all, which that one's a galvanized, so it's not going to be a whole lot, but it does have some staining that'll be cleaned up and refitted out, and it will go back in a new location.
I do have a question also.
Sure.
And this is just more of a knowledge question. I've seen a lot of these lights going up nowadays that are more blue lights or purple lights versus the bright LED lights. Is there a reason for that?
The ones we've been getting are been the more bluish LEDs that you see. That's what we're getting. They're true white, they call them. That's what most of the ones we're ordering. Now, some of the ones Tri-County and some of them are using. This new purple is supposed to tone the light down somewhat, but I don't like it myself personally.
Is that an environmental thing? Or?
No, it's supposed to help with how much light escapes out. How, I don't know if you noticed, the white, especially of those streets, those things are bright, very, very strong light, very, very white light. And so they're trying to tone them down. And when you start backing them off, they tend to go, the LEDs tend to get a purple hue to a lot of, or a bluish. Some call it blue, sometimes it's in between. It's trying to tone that down. So somebody's out there. There are a couple of companies we hear that are working on a whole bunch of different other LED projects for head to go on poles, but those are what we have today. But that's why you're seeing those strange colors. They're turning some of them down, and then they're finding also some of them can be in the older lights. As they get old, they do it. That's another thing they're finding out. The drivers start wearing out and they turn colors as they get old. They're
I've just
not
been
very
seeing,
pretty to look at. I know
yeah,
that much.
I've seen it quite a bit here lately.
Oh yeah, but it's supposed to tone it down, keep that bright white that the LEDs have. True white, they are really white. That is such a bright light, and that's still everybody sees them, but I mean there's a lot of new stuff going on with the LEDs, trying to get them to where they are really strong. But sometimes they put out too much light, too strong a light, so it overcomes you and you're causing problems for some people.
I'd like to mention on the project, every week I have a TxDOT meeting. There's always about 8 people there
Mm-hmm.
from TxDOT and several engineering companies, Haslett, and that meeting covers both Haslett Parkway as the project as a whole, as well as accelerated L construction. And project like that, there's always small challenges, but we've been having success in getting them addressed, and all the parties are working together. TxDOT, engineering, the contractor, all of us
Mhm.
together. But the accelerated project is just, they are on track to open up March 31st. We're talking in 2.5 months.
Yes, they are raring to go.
And I drove that yesterday, the
Mm-hmm.
entire project. And everything is in. Now, I did not drive up towards I-35. I don't know, have they made that connection yet?
There's a gap still there waiting. That's going to be one of the last pours done, but it is within 5 feet of the pavement, so it will be a very
And I
easy
saw the
job.
sidewalk, and they are moving right along. You know, we've been blessed with good weather.
Oh yeah, right now they are, since last week was kind of the first week for them to back, so they're really hitting it this week. This week everybody's operating, so they're running on all 8 cylinders this week.
All right, council, any questions for Mr. Rogers? Okay.
Thank y'all.
Let's move on to item 7, the consent agenda. 7A is approval of the December 12th, 2022 regular city council meeting minutes.
Mayor Halsey,
Yes.
I move to approve the regular city council meeting minutes as presented.
Motion is made to approve the regular city council meeting minutes of December 12th, 2022 as presented. Is there a second?
I second that.
There is a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, council. Item 8, public hearings, ordinances, resolutions, and action items. 8A, discuss, consider, and act to approve the HCEDC request to amend its budget to expend $5,500 for the appraisal of all HCEDC properties. Mr. Schwanken.
Mayor Halsey and members of the council, this is an item that we want placed on the agenda because the EDC, the HCEDC Board B, has 5 pieces of property that they may need to dispose of, and they need to come up with a fair market value of those pieces of property. And we have a appraiser that's willing to do that for $5,500, and so that's the reason why we need to adjust their budget to do so.
And part of the process is the governing body approves all expenditures of HC, EDC, and EDC Type A as well. And this was not in their budget. So this is an additional expense. And they have very sufficient funds to cover. All right then. Any questions regarding this? I'll say that the HCEDC, the intent is to divest itself of all property. They're not being held for any particular project, which is contrary to what the intent of EDCs, according to local government code, is. So they recognize and go ahead and put these out for the market.
Mayor Halsey?
Yes.
I make a motion to amend the HCEDC budget to expend up to $5,500 for the appraisal of all HCEDC properties.
Motion is made to amend the HCEDC budget to expend $5,500 for the appraisal of all HCEDC properties. Is there a second?
Mayor Halsey, I'll second.
There is a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, council. 8B, discuss, consider, and act regarding the approval of the Sweetgrass Phase 1C final replat. Staff, is that Mr. Moore?
Yeah, Mayor Halsey and members of the council, this is a plat at the northern terminus of Wintergreen Avenue that was recently platted as part of the Sweetgrass subdivision. And what it was is there's a gas line that runs across this property diagonally, which makes it the lots that property sort of undevelopable, but it's going to be abandoned. And once it's abandoned, there's as you see on the screen, there are potential of 4 additional lots with 1 HOA tract lot. And this shows 4 lots, but the one on the very southeast corner of that is an existing lot, but with this plat, this easement will be abandoned. So that's the purpose of including it. There'll be 3 new lots at the end of the cul-de-sac, plus that lot being redone, and a HOA tract on the west. Having said that, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this plat.
Mayor Halsey?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the Sweetgrass Phase 1C final replat.
I did not have that on. Motion is made to approve the Sweetgrass Phase 1C final replat. Is there a second?
As Mayor Halsey, I'll second that.
There is a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, council. Item 8C, discuss, consider, and act on the Laterra South preliminary plat extension request. And I'm going to Mr. Swanky, and I'll invite Mr. Page as well.
Yeah, Mayor Halsey, members of the council, we received a letter late last week requesting that the next item on the agenda, the Laterra South preliminary plat, have an extension of 30 days. And it's sort of problematic is in 30 days, there is no council meeting. There's one prior to that, and there's one after that. And there's nothing in the local government code that says you have to approve an extension. And so because of that, and them not being able to submit any revisions to that, or having the time to, and also the fact that the Planning and Zoning Commission on any extension, it would not see those revisions anyway. We like to run everything through the Planning and Zoning Commission prior to it coming to the City Council. So we're asking that you disapprove this extension request.
Mr. Page, any comment?
Yeah, as stated, this is completely discretionary under state law. So if you wish to do 30 days, it would need to be probably at the next council meeting. Otherwise, we may be outside of that 30-day deadline because we do have to consider this within the 30 days or within an additional 30 days from that original deadline. And I know Mike Anderson will come up in a second to talk about some of the deficiencies and the reason why it was disapproved at the P&Z meeting. And there are concerns about whether or not those can be sufficiently addressed in the next few weeks.
Okay, council, to the question of granting this extension or not. So it's the
Mayor Holsey, I'd like to make a motion to disapprove the Laterra South preliminary plat extension.
motion is made to disapprove the Laterra South preliminary plat extension request. Is there a second?
Mayor Hosey, I second.
There is a second. Any further discussion?
Yes, Mayor Halsey. I just had some questions of the pros and cons of granting the extension. So you said the negative is definitely it'd have to fall on our next meeting. Are there other, and they might not get it done in time, but that's on them. So are there any positives for extending it, or is it all really, there's nothing on the upside?
There's nothing on the upside of granting an extension, and we really don't know what the purpose of it was, and they didn't explain it. There's a letter in your packet that they just asked for it, but the questions that we have on the preliminary plat go way beyond what can be solved in 2 weeks.
Let me also make a comment. If a applicant, this one or anybody else, were to ask for an extension, there is an appropriate time to ask for an extension. And that would be, okay, they make their initial application. Application is deemed, complete. And so the clock starts ticking, 30-day clock. Now, as time goes, before the first hearing, we have a two-body approval process, planning and zoning and the city council meeting. The appropriate time to ask for an extension would be before it here is heard by planning and zoning. That'd be the most appropriate time. So then changes could be made, and then it goes through that P&Z process and that city council process. But this was in the middle of the road, and what is required, the city council has to act on the plat that was presented to P&Z. That's got to be dealt. And so to think that we'll make a bunch of changes and then act on that, well, we got to act on the one that was presented to planning and zoning and take care of that record. Anyway,
Yeah, and I was just going to add, so the best that they would be looking at is making some sort of mutual agreement with our city engineer as to the changes, and then you all approving with conditions at the next meeting, and then they come back at the next council meeting with a revised plat showing all those conditions being changed. So there's not really an opportunity for them to submit a revised plat to the council prior to council disapproving or approving with conditions on it.
I've got a question.
so please go ahead.
If they, let's say they resubmit tomorrow, we don't approve this extension, they resubmit tomorrow with the same exact plan, have they been relayed all of the changes that we've asked them to do?
So under the law, they are permitted to resubmit to the city, and we have to consider within 15 days whether or not they have met all of the standards that we set as a part of the disapproval. And so at that point in time, we would then reconsider it.
But your question also is they're aware of the conditions and it says here, respond to city comments. So they're aware of the
Yes,
city
so
comments.
and it's in the next agenda item is the full letter from our engineer outlining all the deficiencies in the plat that was given to them at the P&Z meeting, and that will be a part of this for the council as well.
And to make note, the applicant is not here.
I had one other question. You mentioned two-body approval, but it goes through P&Z, but it comes to us. City council can overrule it doesn't have to be approved by both.
Oh, that's
Correct.
correct.
Okay, so it's
But it's a two-body process.
process, okay. All right, that's what I was going to clarify. So you said approval, but it's a process because we take the recommendation and then we make our decision based on it. Okay, thank you. I
All
have
right.
no other questions.
So there is a motion and a second on the floor, and that is motion is to, and seconded to disapprove the extension request. All right, I call for the vote. All in favor of disapproving? All right, motion's unanimous. Okay, then we go to item 8D, to consider the plat itself. Discuss, consider, and act regarding the approval of the Laterra South preliminary plat. Staff presentation, I'll give that to Mr. Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Mike Anderson, Belchep and Associates. What we received from the applicant is a preliminary plat for approximately 96 acres, generally located at the northeast corner of the intersection of John Day Road and Blue Mound Road. The applicant is proposing to create 247 single-family lots with 6 open space lots. The vast majority of the lots appear to be 40 feet by 125 feet dimensionally. What we have here is a preliminary plat letter, an analysis of the plat, supporting preliminary engineering documents. Comments 1 through 7 on the actual preliminary plat document are listed before you. They're relatively minor in nature, except for item number 1. Item number 1, under our review comments, the applicant did not show adjacent subdivisions for the properties located generally contiguous to the applicant's location, and that's critical to ensure that drainage is properly coordinated between the developments, as well as access to roadways, and that adequate connections for utilities are provided. Comments 2, 3, 4, and 5 are relatively minor in nature. I guess we can actually get into the preliminary engineering comment. Start there on the second page. There's insufficient information contained in the applicant's preliminary engineering to determine whether or not the downstream receiving culvert underneath the railroad track has capacity for the increased runoff due to this development. It did not provide an analysis of the current runoff from the property in order to ascertain whether or not on-site detention is needed. A portion of this property is located in a 100-year floodplain. The applicant's proposing to channelize and rework that drainage. There were no calculations provided with the submittal for us to ascertain whether or not what the applicant's proposing is workable, if you will. And all this affects the lot layout, street layout, numbers, etc. Again, we're not asking for final engineering at this point, but there was just no information contained in the applicant's submittal for us to determine whether or not drainage is going to be adversely affected up or downstream.
What I would like to make and made a comment about final is that what we have learned, unless you provide that engineering in that preliminary plat, it's very difficult to recover in the final phase.
That's correct. We're currently dealing with that on several of the phases of the 2,500 lots that have been approved in the various states of development here in the city. The preliminary plat locks in the layout, the lot numbers, and it's also where we determine adequacy of facilities, whether those are adjacent roadways, internal roadways, on and off-site utilities, on and off-site drainage. So it's very important on the front end that we work with the applicant and their engineer to determine that they've provided adequate facilities both on and off-site. Typically, a process for a project like this will probably take about 6 months. So we received this plat application on December 9th. We had to put comments together by December, I don't remember when it was. We had a couple days to look at it, to be honest with you. Wasn't too difficult because the application was extremely deficient. We'll kind of walk through it here in a minute. I just wanted to hit the highlights of the letter. Item 2, adequacy of off-site sewer. That's a big one. They're proposing to extend sewer from an existing crossing underneath the BNSF railroad track. They're showing that facility to be by others. There's no plan or agreement in place for that facility to be extended. The receiving 10-inch line underneath the railroad track does not have capacity. And what we're determining right now is that the downstream receiving end of that line does not have capacity either. So that's a large one that's going to have to be resolved. And we're just now getting to the point of trying to sort through what's there, what the capacity is, and what the city, through actions on previous developments, preliminary and final plats, have allocated capacity-wise to other developments. So we have to take into account what's been approved at the preliminary and final plat level for all the developments up and downstream to ensure that sufficient capacity remains for those developments that have received approval. So we know there's a sewer capacity issue. We've sent the applicant's engineer a copy of some preliminary analysis that we've done on the downstream lines. I've got that information there in your packet. We'll kind of skim through that here in just a moment. Item 3 is the off-site water. There's a proposed off-site water line by others to serve the site in order to provide adequate fire capacity and meet the city's master plan. We're in the process of updating the water master plan and water model and determined that a 16-inch line is needed from generally Blue Mound and Birchwood, I think, going into Ashmore Farms up John Day Road and tie into the existing 12-inch line that terminates where John Day Road currently terminates. So that needs to be sorted out. The applicant's proposing loop 8-inch lines for service of the on-site development, which appears to be fine, but the off-site water line needs to be worked out. Now, the next item on our list is item 4, which is there's insufficient information in their preliminary engineering plans and their traffic impact analysis to determine the adequacy of both on and off-site roadways. They need to go through and perform the calculations and determinations in accordance with your ordinance that shows that the street widths, the right-of-way widths, and the pavement sections meet the city standards. Basically, as they intersect with John Day Road, there was no preliminary engineering plans for John Day Road, nor were there plans for Blue Mound Road, both adjacent roadways that don't currently meet city standards, and your ordinance requires that they be responsible for a minimum of 1/2 of those proposed roadways. John Day Road and coordinating the drainage underneath John Day Road and the design of John Day Road will have an impact on the layout of this development. So some coordination is obviously needed there. You'll see a lot of 4 or 5, maybe 6 sections underneath the transportation sections of your ordinance that the applicant isn't meeting. I don't want to go into depth on all those. Those are all various sections of the ordinance where this application is deficient. If you'll recall, the city's thoroughfare plan was amended, and there needs to be some coordination to allow for some roundabouts at 2 of their roadways as they intersect with the adjacent development, the LaPrell property, city of Fort Worth. So that information was given to the applicant last week. We're in the process of laying out Blue Mound Road as it intersects with John Day Road as well. We've got roadway improvements necessary through there, as well as access to Blue Mound Road for gas well on their property, gas wells, and the effects of that access to the proposed quiet zone improvements that'll be necessary with that roadway expansion as well. we're working through that this week, to try to get that information over to the applicant as well. And then we'll lean on them to help us put together something a little more than a concept plan in order to get us past this preliminary engineering stage. So as you can see, a lot of work to be done on this one. So we're going to recommend that the preliminary plat be disapproved, given the insufficient information contained in the applicant's submittal. Maybe Stephen, if you don't mind, if you could kind of just scroll through real quick, so we can kind of show the council. First few sheets are just the layout of the development. You kind of see the location there. You can see the large floodplain coming through. General street layout. They're proposing 2 connections to John Day Road. See the gas well access down there. Here's their drainage plan. So they're not showing the existing routing and or runoff from the property. What they've done is they've imposed their proposed conditions. They haven't taken into account or provided us with information on what the water is actually doing right now. You'll see on the eastern part of the property there, they're proposing to construct a channel. And so we suggested that they coordinate the design of that facility with the adjacent development plans for the Laprelle property, as well as North Glen phase 3 and 4, southeast there. So we provided all that to them. You can see my comments there. We're proposing all the drainage to go to a culvert. They didn't have size for. We did go through, and I was able to find some plans in our files from one of the roadway or the railroad projects many years ago. I sent those over to the applicant on Friday. So they'll at least have some information, but they'll need to get out and verify the size of that culvert, give it enough information for us to review on the drainage floodplain. See there's 5 or 6 culvert crossings on John Day Road that exist currently. That road's elevated. It's almost like a dike going through there. So that drainage will have to be coordinated, and that obviously affects the lot layout. They don't necessarily want drainage pipes running in between houses. That provides issues for future access maintenance. And then if you've got a pipe running between somebody's house and somebody gets a basketball in there or something like that, we always want to make sure we know where that overflow is going to go if and when there's a maintenance issue with that facility. So we have to take it to the level that everyone feels comfortable knowing the location and routing of that drainage, because at some point there will be a problem with those facilities. Their cul-de-sacs don't meet the minimum standards for the city as far as a paved diameter, and then those entrances may need to be widened. The pavement section may need to be widened through there. So we'll just need to get them to go back through and provide that analysis in accordance with the ordinance. Again, some other deficiencies relating to the lack of plans for John Day Road. The applicant's not proposing to dedicate any right-of-way for Blue Mound Road. Next. There's the off-site drainage or the off-site water line from Birchwood on the north side of Blue Mound Road that will need to be constructed as a 16. So the city will need to cost participate in that upsizing to meet the master plan. See up in the top right-hand corner the existing 10-inch sewer line that will need to be replaced. It's probably with a 15 in order to provide adequate capacity. Next. Oh, there we are, back to the start. So in your handouts, not to get too into the weeds, but just real quick, and then I'll get out of here. In your handouts, the last 3 pages of your handouts kind of begins with an exhibit that looks like this. So this was put together back early in the summer to try to determine adequacy of facilities in the area. The area in yellow matches the area in green you see on your plat location map there. And then you can see what we've done is we've gone through and made some preliminary calculations regarding the capacity of the system there. Keep in mind, this is the upper limits of the 15-inch line that eventually makes its way all the way down to Westport. Goes underneath Westport, ties into TRA line. So the gist of it is we've got about 1,500 gallons a minute of sewer, and we've got a line at this location that'll only carry about 1,100 gallons. We've got a deficiency at the upper end of our sewer system here. Needs to be worked out. I don't know the solution yet. I just know we got a capacity problem. The next exhibit, you'll turn with me. It's another sewer exhibit. Kind of got the blue and red Haslett theme going on here. What we've done is we've highlighted this project up here, basically underneath, parallel to Westport Parkway, and that comes down Schoolhouse Road. That project is a sewer replacement that's currently being discussed with TRA in Fort Worth. Got a joint use agreement with TRA in Fort Worth for the city's 15-inch line, and that line is nearing 80% capacity. And so that line is currently being discussed, and it's actually, you all have some funding in the bond proceeds that you got must participate in that. So we've got a plan for that. But the problem is there is no plan in place to replace the line from basically the intersection near Lee's Barbecue all the way down to Ashmore Farm. It's about, 3,800 feet of sewer line, maybe more, maybe less. And that's where we're having our capacity issue. We've got it way down here at the upper reach. Obviously, as you go downstream, you have more flows coming into it. So all that needs to be sorted out. What we've done is taken the best records that we have, and we put those into the spreadsheet, the back page here. And we've accounted for everything that's been approved, and we've accounted for everything that exists. And what we've tried to do is determine, okay, where are we short, what segments, and then what we'll need the applicant's help with is we'll have to go out and get everything as built surveyed, that being the sewer line. We'll have to run new numbers based on what the system is actually capable of flowing based on the slope. We're going by old construction plans, not necessarily what's in the ground. So going to be some effort required for that. And we'll have to put together a cost estimate and talk about cost participation and responsibilities, et cetera. So from a engineering technical standpoint, sewer presents a problem for this project that we don't quite have all the answers for right now. And we'll just need to work through all that with the applicant. The coordination of the roadway improvements, the water extension, those seem to be pretty straightforward. The applicant will have some work to do for their on-site drainage, but we've gotten them some good information this week, so they'll start that process, and we'll work through that with them. So that's the look on Laterra South. Any questions for me? I believe Jeremy Nelson, the applicant's engineers, on the call. If you have any questions for him, between the two of us, we may know the answer. No.
I've got a question.
Yes.
So this study that you did on the sewer line, you said from 10 to 15 is what is needed to be upgraded to?
Well, there's a small, if you go back to this exhibit, there's a small segment underneath the railroad track. Apologize. Right here. This put in with the Laterra North subdivision. There's a 20-inch casing underneath the railroad track. You put a 10-inch pipe in, which is good. The casing's large enough to accommodate a large pipe. So I think we could most probably just pull the 10 out, stick a 12 or a 15 or whatever it needs to be, assuming it's no bigger than a 15. It would fit in the existing casing. So that's one facility that needs to be replaced, and then you get into the existing 15 that runs back behind Ashmore and the Meadows. It's just flat.
And this study was done based on the 247 single-family homes?
Yes, sir.
So if you reduce the size of the houses, then obviously you would need a smaller pipe, or
Sure,
would
absolutely.
the existing one work?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to whether right offhand what the magic number would be, if you will,
Okay.
or whether or not I'll have that information, but there appears to be an existing sewer capacity issue right now.
Oh, there's one
Based-
already now without
Based on
any
what's
new
based on
houses.
what's been approved.
Okay, thank you.
I do want to make a comment to this preliminary plat this is a ETJ project, council. So with regard to, we see the lot layout and the lot sizes, that's not a particular consideration. We're not of anything like that because this is still proposed to be in the ETJ. So if y'all want to give any further guidance on that topic, I just wanted to make it clear to the council because it's very rare that they see a plat that's not associated with being in the city.
So a couple months ago, you all adopted a revised master land use plan. That master land use plan does call for for half-acre lot, I believe, on this property. However, due to it being in the ETJ, we are not allowed to enforce that. So zoning, use, building size, lot size, those are all things that state law specifically prohibits us from regulating in the ETJ. However, we are permitted to enforce our subdivision ordinances in the ETJ, as well as other aspects of the master plan that we have adopted, including the thoroughfare plan. Now, the master thoroughfare plan was adopted 2 or 3 days after they submitted this plat application, so they are only subject to the previous thoroughfare plan. But anything else that's in our current subdivision ordinances, they are subject to having to follow. And so that is everything that's in this letter are things that we are permitted to regulate and that are deficient according to our engineer.
I had a question. Could you explain why it's highlighted in the red boxes for me? Sorry, but at a very low level, please. So it's already,
Yes.
okay,
It's already deficient. So,
deficient.
Mr.
Okay,
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm good. Thank you.
I did want to make one comment. I just wanted to thank you for the thorough analysis that you did do. It was very understandable to go through and read it. So I thank you very much. You did a great job.
Thank you.
I just have one question. This isn't the first time I think we've seen a preliminary plan come in from Laterra. And
You saw this a July 27th, I think it was December the 12th. You saw the exact same plans. That application was incomplete though, and the city council determined that was an incomplete application. So but just days prior to the council hearing that they were already notified. They knew it had expired, and they submitted this same set of plans. So yes, you have seen it before.
and I guess my question is I think when we saw it back in July, once again, it was insufficient. And so we said that was insufficient. We asked them to come back and work with our city engineer to get something that was more presentable that would for both them. And that sort of goes to my question is I just heard you say that you just got something on January 9th that you might need 6 months to go over. Have they even reached out to even talk to you between July and December?
No, there was no request for discussion or information to our office prior to us receiving what you have before you December 9th.
It just seems to me that we've made the request for this developer to actually work with the city, and they're not seem to be working.
Well, the council, my recommendation is just disapprove this preliminary plat. And I think Mr. Anderson has their attention, and they understand, and they can go forward. There are a great amount of costly engineering issues that are unresolved that need to be addressed. I would ask you to do so.
Yeah, Mayor Holst, I mean, I've got it, I guess I'm just really confused about the whole water and sewer line bit, because right now there's no water and sewer that reaches that subdivision. And
So
they've
the
got,
developer will be responsible for
Okay.
extending that.
and on your engineer report on the preliminary utility plan, it shows a water line, a 12-inch water line, it says who? Well, I didn't think, and that looked like it's going west to east, and I didn't think we had anything. I thought whatever we had was capped right there about the railroad track
I believe,
that was owned by the city of Haslett.
We have a water line that's to the east, that's owned by the city of Haslett.
Yeah. But it does not cross west over the railroad track.
That's correct. They would need to do that. But they didn't identify who
Yeah,
or
that's-
what.
That's okay. So that's still an unknown.
Correct.
So it gets back to there's still a lot of unknowns with
Yes,
water
sir.
and sewer. And on
Oh.
this plat, with the size of the lot, they have to go with a sewer system because the regulations by state won't allow them to put septic systems on this small lot.
Well, let me say, it is still, they have submitted this as a ETJ project. There's been no request or developer agreement or any insinuation that they will annex into the city. That is the only way they can get sewer from the
Yeah.
city of Haslett to annex. Now, with regard to the sewer, regardless of what they've got shown here, and if it goes forward as a county project, they will have to go to the county, and the county will determine what lot sizes, the
Yeah.
minimum lot sizes they'll have to do on-site sanitary sewer.
Okay. Thank you.
But it's not our place at this point in time to consider that.
And I'll add, on the plat for the water line, they reference the development agreement that the city previously had with the property owner, in which the city had at one time agreed to construct those water line and sewer line connections. We have, on multiple occasions over the last several months, informed the property owner and their attorney that the city would not be doing that. And so that is something, that is why that's one of our notes on the plat, is that because the city will not be constructing that water line connection.
Okay. Thank you.
This really is
City will
not
not be paying for the water line.
one last question, and again, it's just more for knowledge sake because I know it is an ETJ, but I'm looking at this plot right here, and at the very beginning you said it's 96 acres, but it only looks like they're developing maybe 2/3 of it is actual developable. So that's maybe only 60 acres developable.
yeah, roughly. They didn't really give us a summary, net developable, open space, et cetera. There are 3 gas wells there. I guess I forgot to mention that. There are 3 gas wells. You can actually kind of see them there, 3 operation sites. There's an existing pond up there on the north end of the property, and then a chunk of floodplain that comes down through there. So I think the setbacks from the gas well heads is what's driving the open space, if you will, along the east side of the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Holsey, I'd like to make a motion to disapprove the Laterra South preliminary plat.
Motion is made to disapprove the Laterra South preliminary plat. Is there a second?
Mayor Halsey, I'll second.
There is a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, council. Item 8E, discuss, consider, and act on ordinance amending Appendix A, Article 7, Development Fees, subsection M, regarding deposits for consultant reviews. And I'll take this. And the revision is to better clarify. We're not really making big wholesale changes, but to clarify what these fees are for. And This document's been passed through Mr. Swanky and Mr. Page, as well as Mr. Anderson, Mr. Rogers, and this, you compare the previous cover page that I had that's highlighted, you compare that language with regard to what the proposed that's in the ordinance itself, new section M. It's just very much more specific and be very much more functional for the city of Haslett. In essence, everything that we take in, our consultants review. The previous insinuated that there had to be a civil plan. Well, there's much more to the things that we get don't always have civil plans. Most don't. That just comes later. But this would be a much more functional and of service to the city of Haslett to make this change. Is there any questions on that?
There, Mayor Holsley, like to make a motion that we approve amending the ordinance Appendix A, Article 7, development fees, subsection M, regarding deposits for consultants' reviews.
The motion is made to approve the ordinance amending Appendix A, Article 7, development fees, subsection M, regarding deposits for consultants' reviews. Is there a second? There is a second. Any discussion? All right, I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
So unanimous. Thank you, council. Item 9, executive session. Council, I have no need for executive session. None of the staff. So I ask that we just move on and to item 10 is mute. Let's go to item 11, future agenda items. Council, do you have anything for a future agenda item? All right. Let's go to item 12.
Mayor
Have a
Holsey,
motion to
I motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Motion is made to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
There is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, council. Good job.